Today I'm going to tell you a story so tender it aches, set in the wide, wind-scoured plains of the American West, where the sky stretches forever and the river cuts silver through dust and silence. It's a place where survival hardens most hearts, and where two worlds stand on opposite banks, watching but never touching. It began with something small, a flinch, just a brief recoil from an offered hand. But that single movement was powerful enough to change the course of two lives. I flinched. That's the piece that matters. Not his face, not his name. The flinch. I reached Montana territory in the spring of 1853, with a carpetbag in one hand and a bruise blooming purple along my ribs. Back east, I'd belonged to a man named Rourke Danner. He owned a temper quicker than a drawn colt. The neighbors whispered. Nobody stepped in. I left the night his fingers clamped around my wrist so hard I heard bone give way. That sharp crack was the first honest sound in my marriage. It sounded like freedom. The frontier town I landed in looked half asleep and sun-beaten. One general store, Torrin Pike's forge ringing from dawn to dusk. A narrow church where Obadiah Voss preached fire and duty, and dust stretching between them like a tired dog. Elspeth Ryland took me in without prying. She tied an apron around my waist, pressed a broom into my hand, and let silence be kindness. That first week, I carried linens down to the river. The water ran clear as polished glass. I could see every stone resting beneath the current. I was kneeling there when I felt it. That sense of being watched. Across the river stood a man like he'd grown straight out of the earth. Ashen. I didn't know his name then. He stepped onto a slick rock and reached out, steady and sure. I jerked back hard, breath catching, like a stray dog expecting the lash. He saw it. His hand froze mid-air. He didn't argue, didn't insist. Slowly, he lowered it. Then he pointed downstream where flat stones cut a safer path through the current. After that, he turned and disappeared into the trees. That night in my cabin, I lay awake thinking about a man who saw fear in me and chose to give it space. I noticed her while checking fish traps along the bend. A white woman alone at the crossing, sleeves rolled, working in silence. Our people and the settlers kept their distance. Not peace, exactly. Just a careful quiet. Yara taught me to read a body the way hunters read tracks in snow. Pain leaves marks. Even from across the water, I saw it. Her left wrist carried wrong. She guarded it like a mule favors a shattered leg. The rocks were slick. She was about to slip. I stepped forward and reached out, meaning only to steady her. She recoiled as if my touch would burn. Not a small flinch, the kind that comes from years of bracing. I've seen horses like that, beaten so long they don't fear a single hand. They fear all of them. So I pulled back, pointed to the safer stones. Let her decide. I didn't follow. That was the important part. My grandfather, Kestrel, has led our band longer than most men remember. I told him nothing about the woman at the river. But that night I sat high on the ridge and asked Aaron why her fear felt lodged inside my chest like gravel. The flat stones downstream, he said quietly the next time we faced each other across the water. You can cross there. Thank you, I answered, forcing my voice steady. I didn't mean to trouble you. The river's shallow here. You'll be fine. I hesitated. What's your name? He didn't answer that day. For 3 mornings I found reasons to return. Told Elspeth the wash needed doing, that the river air cleared my head. He wasn't there the first 2 times. By the third, I felt foolish. Then I found a small bundle resting on my side of the bank, roots and leaves tied tight with rawhide. The next day, another. And the day after that, medicine. He was healing me without crossing the water. Elspeth narrowed her eyes when I kept slipping away. A woman alone in town invites speculation. I felt it in the way doors paused, half open. So I crossed. Cold water wrapped around my ankles. The stones shifted beneath my boots. Each step felt like shedding skin. Harder than leaving Rourke. Harder than boarding that westbound wagon. Ashen waited in the meadow beyond the cottonwoods, far enough that I had to choose him. I left the first bundle of yarrow and arnica at dawn. Yarrow would have called it meddling. But healing is not meddling. It's breath. Kestrel caught me cutting yarrow once. Asked who needed it. For the fish traps, I said. He studied me like a colt testing a fence. Said nothing more. I didn't wait at the riverbank. I waited in the meadow. If she came, it would be her step. Fear like hers doesn't mend with plants alone. It mends when choice returns. I heard her before I saw her. Water splashing, quick and uneven. My heart kicked awake in my chest. She emerged from the trees, skirts dripping, clutching the herbs like something sacred. "Thank you," she said. I gave her our word for welcome. She tried to shape it, stumbled over the sound, and smiled despite herself. I showed her the yarrow growing wild. Touched my own wrist, asking permission with my eyes. "This one," I said softly. "Crush it. Hold it here." "You've been leaving those for me," she said. "Will you teach me how to find them?" "Yes. Sit. I'll show you what I know." "May I see your wrist? I won't hurt you." She held it out. It was broken once. Healed crooked. "Most things do," I said. "Everything in me healed on its own," she whispered. "Until now." She didn't flinch when I touched her. "You see?" she asked. "I see." "What's your word for this? For not being afraid?" "Ba'u," I told her. "Safe." She swallowed. Men before me had taught her that hands were weapons. Gideon Vale's grip when she moved too slow. Rourke Danner's fist when she spoke too loud. She hadn't known hands could be careful. The day she sliced her palm on a rusted hinge at the store, blood ran bright as sunset down her arm. Elspeth wanted Calder Knox with his needle and whiskey. Briar shook her head. "I know someone better," she said. She crossed with her hand wrapped tight in cloth, leaving red drops on stone. I saw the blood and everything in me sharpened. Not panic, but purpose. I unwrapped her hand gently, rinsed it in cool stream water, pressed sage paste into the wound. While binding it, I murmured a word. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means the pain is leaving." She stayed in the meadow long after the bandage was secure. Didn't look toward the river, as if my side of it finally felt like home. He never made me ashamed of wanting gentleness. Not once. She crossed the river with her wounded hand pressed against her chest, blood seeping through the cloth. I could see fear in her eyes, but it wasn't fear of me. It was fear of pain, of what pain always meant in her life. When you tend to someone, their skin tells you their history. Hers spoke of long years no yarrow could mend. That afternoon, I gave her 3 words in my tongue. Sun, water, safe. She repeated them softly until the light shifted gold around us. She gave me something in return. Not a word. A silence. The kind a person carries when they cannot yet speak about what shattered them. The elders began to notice how often I disappeared toward the river. Flint stopped me one evening. "You meeting that settler woman?" "I gather medicine near the crossing," I answered. It wasn't untrue. She was the truest medicine I'd ever known. Kestrel called me to sit beside the fire. His voice stayed calm, which meant the warning ran deep. "The river stands between our people for a reason. Water keeps apart what must not mix." I held his gaze. Grandfather, the river doesn't divide. It moves between both banks. It touches each side. He did not approve of that answer. That night, I climbed the ridge alone and asked Aaron whether what stirred inside me was healing, or something that could burn everything down. A hawk wheeled over the valley 3 times, then settled on a stone at the river's edge. In our way, that means the answer already lives in your chest. Hold still, I murmured, steadying her wrist. The bleeding's done. It doesn't ache when you touch it like that, she said. Teach me another word, something I can carry back with me. Dashua, I told her. It means I'm glad you came. She studied me. Ashen, what did you see the first day I pulled away? I saw someone taught that hands only bring hurt. The sun dipped lower. You should head back while there's still light, I said. Will you be here tomorrow? She asked. I want to learn more. I will. She swallowed. Every man before you was rough. You don't owe me the whole story, I said quietly. I already understand. Bahu, she whispered, remembering. I'm safe here with you, Ashen. Yes, I answered. Come when you're ready. Rourke Danner rode into town on a Tuesday. I was sweeping the porch at Elspeth Ryland's store when I heard his voice. Ice filled my veins. He was questioning Torrin Pike about a woman. Dark blonde hair, gray eyes, a damaged wrist. He spoke of me like misplaced property. I dropped the broom and stepped inside. Elspeth took one look at my face and bolted the door without asking why. Rourke went straight to Obadiah Voss. By evening, the preacher stood in the store telling me, a wife's duty before God is to stand beside her husband, no matter the hardship. Elspeth's voice cut sharper than a blade. You can leave my store, Reverend, and come back when you learn the difference between scripture and cruelty. When Rourke pounded on the door later, she hid me in the cellar. I sat in darkness, listening to his boots scrape across the floorboards overhead. That was the night I decided I would not crouch in shadows again. I would not shrink. I crossed the river after sunset. The water was black as coal. I couldn't see the stones beneath my feet. I moved on memory and stubborn faith. Halfway through, I slipped. The current swallowed me to the waist. For a breath, I thought, so this is drowning. Then my boot struck rock. She didn't come for 2 days. The bundles I left lay untouched. Something had shifted on her side of the river. From the ridge, I saw a new horse tied outside the church and a broad-shouldered man pacing the street. I didn't know his name yet. I didn't need to. His stride told me enough. I went to Kestrel. A settler man has come. The woman by the river may be in danger. He answered without anger. The troubles of white men are not ours. Do not carry a burden that isn't given to you. Healing doesn't stop at water, I said. A healer who drowns in another's wound saves no one, he replied. That night, I stood at the crossing beneath a bright moon. I could not sleep, could not pray. I waited while the cold worked into my bones. Then I heard splashing, wild, frantic. Not careful steps, running. She burst from the river soaked to the chest, shaking so hard she could barely stand. She collapsed in the grass on my side. You're safe, I said, kneeling beside her. I'm here. Breathe. He found me, she gasped. Rourke Danner. He's in town. Tell me, I said. Take your time. He broke my wrist, split my lip, told me I was nothing. I lifted her chin. He was wrong, every word of it. She searched my face. I crossed in the dark to reach you. And you made it, I said. I wasn't running from him this time, she whispered. I was running toward you. I carried her to Yara's lodge. She was asleep before I set her down, exhaustion deeper than river water. By dawn, the whole camp knew a white woman stood among us. Questions pressed against every canvas wall. Kestrel called counsel. He never raises his voice. He doesn't need to. He spoke plainly before the fire. Kindness to one settler can bring 100 soldiers. This woman is danger. I stood before them all. Our ancestors did not teach us to heal only our own blood. Healing has no bank, no boundary. She is not a settler. She is a woman harmed. Ashen, I'm scared I'll ruin your world the way I've ruined everything else. You didn't ruin a thing, he said, steady as stone. You changed it. That's not the same. How do you know? My throat tightened. How can you tell the difference? Come on, he told me, before the sun drops. Where? Up to the ridge. I followed, boots slipping in dry grass, heart thumping like it didn't trust the quiet. When we reached the top, the valley opened wide. River, cottonwoods, smoke threads rising far off. From here, Ashen said, the river looks small, but it feeds everything below. I stared at that thin ribbon of water. It doesn't look like a border from up here, I whispered. It looks like a thread. I swallowed hard. Will Kestrel ever truly accept me? Ashen's gaze didn't waver. He already has. He just needs time to say it out loud. He tipped his chin toward the sky. When the first star shows, I'll tell you its name in my tongue. Listen. I'm listening, I said. I want every name you know, for everything. The Crow women didn't welcome me with sweet words. They welcomed me with work. A scraping tool landed in my hands, and a fresh elk hide was shoved my way. I was awful at it. My fingers were soft from store shelves and broom handles. That hide was hard as a plank. But no one laughed. They corrected my grip, nudged my wrists, showed me how to lean my weight just right. By the third day, Sable sat down beside me. She didn't speak English. She didn't need to. Her hands did the talking, patient, firm, sure. Beads clicked like rain as she showed me the crow pattern stitch by stitch. Somewhere between the hides and the smoke and the beadwork, I realized what I'd called love before wasn't love at all. It had been ownership dressed up like devotion. Ashen never once claimed me. Not with his words, not with his eyes. He taught me how to rebuild myself from the inside out. A healer doesn't create need, he told me. A healer gives the knowing away, so the wound can close for good. I asked him once, late in the evening, if he feared Rourke Danner. Ashen's mouth barely moved. I'm not afraid of any man. Then his voice went quieter. I'm afraid of losing what the river brought me. Every night I walked down to the water and stared toward town. Chimney smoke, dusty streets, my old life sitting just 100 yards away like a cage left open. I knew Rourke was still there, asking questions, turning over every stone. Men like him don't quit. Ashen began preparing for the sweat with the men. I need a vision, he said. Day by day, I watched the weight settle deeper on his shoulders. When he came out of the lodge, his eyes looked changed. Calmer, darker, like he'd seen something that wouldn't leave him. The hawk crossed the river, he told me. In my vision. Teaching her to make medicine was the closest I'd ever been to anyone. Briar learned with her whole body, not just her fingers. She crushed sage wrong 4 times before she got it right. Each time she glanced up at me, braced for anger. Each time I only showed her again. That's when I understood what had been done to her. She'd been trained to expect punishment for every mistake. Unlearning that takes longer than any cut. My love stopped being a question the morning she spoke a crow prayer over the medicine she'd made. Clear, perfect, as if the words had been waiting inside her all along. Inside the sweat, I begged for clarity. Heat and darkness stripped everything down to bone. Then the spirits showed me a hawk, my hawk, lifting from our bank and flying straight across to the town side. I didn't understand it with my mind, but my bones understood. Sooner or later, I would have to cross. That same week, Rourke came to the crossing. I watched from the ridge. He stood on her bank and stared at the water like it had swallowed her whole. He didn't step in. The river was wide enough, strange enough, to make even his kind hesitate. But he turned away with the promise of returning. Men like him always do. That night I went down alone. The moon was full, turning the river silver. I needed to be near the crossing to think about what was coming. "You're sitting out here by yourself," Briar said. I hadn't heard her approach. "I could see you from camp." "I was thinking about the river," I said, "about what it asks of us." She lowered herself beside me. "Sit with me. The water's quiet tonight. Feels like the moon is listening." She drew a breath. "Ashen, there's something I've wanted to say for days." I stayed still. "Every man before you had rough hands," she said. "I didn't know hands could feel like yours." "My hands were always this way," I told her. "You just never had anyone use theirs gentle." I lifted my palm toward her face, slow enough she could refuse. "Can I hold your cheek? I want to see if you still flinch." "Yes," she whispered. "Hold my face. I won't flinch. Not from you." I did it, careful, like touching something sacred. She blinked. "See?" "You didn't," I said, voice rougher than I meant. Her breath shook. "Your hands feel like home to me now." The night wrapped around us. Somewhere in the trees, something moved. The world kept turning. "I won't let him take you back," I said. "You need to hear that." "I hear you," she answered. "But I think I have to face him myself, not hide forever." Her eyes shone in the moonlight. "Stay here with me tonight, by the water. I'm not ready to go back." "I'm not going anywhere," I told her. "The river can wait till morning." "Thank you," she breathed, like the words cost her something. "When morning comes," I said, "we decide together, you and me." "Together," she repeated, and her voice cracked. That word never meant anything real to me until you. I woke before dawn, the way you wake before a storm, before the sky admits it. Running had always been my answer. Run from Gideon Vale's house, run from Rourke, run across the river. But running doesn't finish anything. I told Ashen I was going back to town, not to Rourke, never to him, but to the street where he stood, to face him in daylight, where witnesses could see. Ashen tried to stop me with nothing but truth, never with force. "Let me come." "This crossing," I said, "I make alone." The river felt warm for once. The stones were familiar beneath my boots. I'd crossed so many times it felt like stepping through my own doorway. Elspeth was on the store porch when I came up the street. She dropped her broom and wrapped me in her arms without a single question. Rourke found me within the hour. He walked toward me like he owned the ground. Old bruises woke up inside my skin like ghosts. "Come home, Briar," he said, making home sound like a chain. I lifted my chin. "No." Loud, clear, in the middle of the street. I watched her cross alone that morning. She didn't stumble, didn't glance back. I'd never seen courage so raw it hurt to look at. Kestrel stood behind me. I hadn't heard him come. He watched her, too. Then he said, quiet as ash, "The hawk in your vision crossed the river, and you're still standing on this bank." He walked away and left the meaning with me. She had crossed to me through cold water, darkness, fear, every time. She had always done the crossing. I hadn't. So I stepped into the river. Warm water, solid stones, 7 strides, and I was on the other side. I didn't look back. I climbed the bank and walked into town. Folks stared. I let them. I saw Briar standing in the street, spine straight, hands trembling. A big man closing in on her. I didn't run, didn't shout. I simply walked to her side and stood there. Sometimes presence is the only weapon you need. I crossed, I said. You don't face this alone anymore. Her eyes widened. Ashen, you came. You crossed to my side. Rourke's gaze burned holes through us. He's right there, she whispered. He's watching. Are you sure? Let him watch, I said. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. He sees you standing. He sees you're not the same woman. No, she said, voice steady now. I'm not. And he can see I'm not afraid. Rourke hesitated, like the river had finally reached him too, and then he turned. He's leaving, she breathed. Ashen, he's actually walking away. Because for the first time, he saw what I'd seen at the river that first day. A woman who no longer flinched. Come, I told her, before the day's gone. The meadow? She asked, hope breaking through. Take me to our meadow by the river. From up on the ridge later, the river looked like a silver line between worlds. Not between, I said. Through. It runs through one world, not two. Ours. Every man before me had been rough, she'd said. Now she couldn't imagine life without gentle hands. And she taught me the truth I'll carry until I die. The river isn't a boundary. It's an invitation. And the bravest thing I ever did was accept it. 2. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blaze the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice, imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process. But every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.